What is the craziest story your grandparent has told you? My grandmother Dorothy was 92 and sitting in her assisted living facility's sunroom when she casually dropped the most insane story I'd ever heard. I was visiting her on a random Tuesday, helping her organize her pill dispenser, when she suddenly looked up and said, "You know, Michael, I never told you about the time I robbed a casino." I laughed because Grandma Dorothy was known for her wild stories. This was the woman who claimed she once dated a circus performer and had dinner with Frank Sinatra. But then she pulled out a faded photograph from her purse. "This was me and the girls in 1973, she said, pointing to a picture of 4 women in their 50s standing in front of what looked like a casino in Las Vegas. "That's me, your Aunt Helen, Marge from down the street, and Betty Kowalski. We called ourselves the Golden Girls way before that TV show." The women in the photo were dressed to the nines, dripping in jewelry and fur coats, looking like they owned the world. I barely recognized my grandma, who I'd only ever seen in sensible cardigans and orthopedic shoes. "We weren't actually planning to rob anything," she continued, settling back in her chair. "We were just 4 housewives from Detroit who decided to take a girls' trip to Vegas with our grocery money. Your grandfather Robert thought I was visiting my sister in Cleveland." According to Dorothy, they'd been having terrible luck at the blackjack tables when Marge, who apparently had a gambling problem none of them knew about, started crying about losing her mortgage payment. That's when Betty, who worked as a bank teller, mentioned she'd noticed something odd about the casino's money counting room during their tour earlier. "Betty said the security guard kept leaving his post to flirt with the cocktail waitresses," Dorothy explained. "And the room was right next to the ladies' restroom. She'd been paying attention because, well, Betty always noticed details like that." What started as drunk commiseration turned into an actual plan. Helen, who'd worked in theater before marriage, knew about costumes and disguises. Marge, despite her gambling addiction, was apparently brilliant with electronics. She'd been fixing radios and TVs in the neighborhood for years. And Dorothy? She'd grown up during the Depression and could pick any lock. "We spent 2 days watching the patterns," she said. "The guard took smoke breaks every hour for exactly 7 minutes. The cleaning lady came through at 2 a.m., and there was a 15-minute window between shift changes where nobody was monitoring the cameras. They bought wigs, fake mustaches, and janitor uniforms from a costume shop." Dorothy still had the lock-picking skills her father had taught her as a child, back when he was a less than legitimate locksmith. Helen coached them on walking differently and changing their voices. Marge figured out how to loop the security footage for 20 minutes. The night of the heist, they waited until 2 a.m., then disguised themselves as male janitors. Dorothy picked the lock to the counting room while Marge handled the cameras and Helen kept watch. Betty, with her bank experience, knew exactly which bills to take. Nothing too large, nothing sequential, nothing that would be immediately missed. "We were in and out in 12 minutes, Dorothy said, her eyes twinkling. "Took exactly $57,000 and left everything else untouched. Made it look like a counting error rather than theft. The most unbelievable part? They actually got away with it. The casino investigated for months," she continued, "but 4 middle-aged housewives from Detroit weren't exactly their prime suspects. They were looking for professional criminals, not women who spent their days making casseroles and carpooling kids. They split the money 4 ways and made a pact never to speak about it again. Helen used her share to send her son to college. Marge paid off her debts and got help for her gambling. Betty bought her dream car. And Dorothy? She secretly paid off their house, telling my grandfather she'd won big at bingo over several months. The crazy part is we stayed friends for 50 years after that, and none of us ever breathed a word," she said. "Even when Helen was dying, she kept the secret. I sat there staring at this tiny old woman who could barely open a jar of pickles, trying to reconcile her story with the grandmother I thought I knew. Grandma, are you serious right now?" She smiled and pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping from 1973. The headline read, "Vegas Casino Stumped by Inside Job." Then she winked at me and said, "Pass me my pills, sweetheart. All this talking about crime makes my arthritis act up. Some secrets are worth keeping for 50 years.